So the underclothes are all black with totally black footwear. If it's very warm, you don't actually need to wear a long sleeve top underneath because the dresses have got long sleeves. So first of all, got a black dress. It's got a fanned out skirt made from lots of different scraps of fabric, and they're quite heavyweight, the fabrics, so they're not light and floaty at all. They've got a real weight to them. There we go, and that just hangs like that. And then we've got a black overcloak, which again has a real heavy weight to it. So that goes on over your shoulders. It's got an inner sleeve, like that, which you put your arm in. You see that? And then the arm sticks. Got 2 sticks, painted black bits of bamboo. We could use dowel. And then it's got a little pocket in the cloak, which you insert that into, so it's along the top seam of the cloak. And there's enough poking out. These are about 90 centimetres long, so that gives you the swoop. They sit in there. Like that, they're stitched up at the end so they don't come out. Here we go. And a black neck piece, because we don't want to see any skin at all, so that ties around. I usually tie it around twice. There it goes at the front, so it stays nice and tight. And then the headpiece is very, very similar to the red one, but in black. We've also got, if I come a bit closer, the flowers that we've used have been, they're pink flowers on this one sprayed black over the top. We've also got bits of feather, so it's like they've been covered in oil. It's like we've used the idea of birds in an oil slick and flowers in an oil slick and things kind of pulled out of the oil, so they've got a real kind of funeral feel to them. And then that goes on over the top, just like with the red headdress. Comes down the side. I would say the head cover bit, the black head cover bit, is bigger than you would make for a red one, and again, out of quite heavyweight fabric. You don't want it to be light and fluffy. It's also a shiny fabric, so there's not so much velvet, but there's only tiny bits of velvet in the costume. It's a shimmery or shiny, sort of silky fabric. And we've got the gloves as well. Black gloves. So no skin showing at all. Make sure everything's tucked in, because you really want to make sure you maintain the black flowing oil slick feel to it. And there you go, that's the costume.
Hi, so I'm going to show you how we do the makeup for the oil slicks, and what you're going to need is some white grease paint. We use this Creolan Dermacolour one, some setting powder, some black face paint, brush for your powder, some setting spray, and some sponges. I've got 3 small ones here. You can get away with using one sponge but using different edges of it for the different colours, and a mirror. So what we're going to do is the face is a kind of like black down to about eye level and then white in the lower half of the face, and then you blend it so it's a nice soft line blended between the two. So I'm going to start off with the white. So if you're using a water-based face paint, you'll need to wet your sponge, but I'm using grease paint, so you don't need any water. You just dab it on. A nice thick layer. And include the lips, they want to be white as well. You want it to be quite a thick layer of white so it's not streaky and it really kind of covers the skin tone. Okay, that's the white done for now, so I'm going to move on to the black. This is a water-based paint, so you need to wet your sponge a little bit. And kind of start at the top and then come down. And again, you want like a nice thick coating thick layer of paint without any light patches or streaks. So you might want to build it up. If it's possible to check it in natural light, that's generally the best way of seeing if there are any uneven patches, better than artificial light. Next, to blend it, so I've gone like a sort of solid line of black down to kind of eye level and then a solid line of white. And then the way to blend the two together is just by dabbing. This bit takes a while. But you want to soften the kind of sharp line. And the best way of doing it is just like lots of little strokes, like dab, 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 not by, because if you start pulling the sponge around, then it gets a bit streaky. You might need to add a bit more paint in a couple of places, like it's got a bit uneven on my eyelids. It usually takes longer than you think it will, so when you're planning when you're going to do this, just allow yourself plenty of time if you can, because it's much easier to do it when you're not in a hurry. And sometimes it's helpful to like get in the inner corner of your eye and things. If you squidge your sponge up into a smaller bit, and you can get it in there. And you want to think about like the level that you bring the black down to. If you're wearing a mask, I've done like quite a high level of white, because if you're wearing a mask on your face, it can sometimes cover a lot of your face. So if you're wearing a mask, you want to be able to see both colours. That is basically there. I'm pretty happy with where those colours are. And then for the next thing, if you're using grease paint, you need to set it with a translucent powder. So I've got a big brush and just kind of dab it on. This stops the grease paint sliding around. The water-based paint doesn't need setting. And then if you're going to be out in a while, you might get a bit sweaty in your costume, or it might rain, or it's a good idea to use a fixing spray. You can also use hairspray if you don't have a fixing spray, and just do a light sort of coating over the face to set it. Ta-da!
To develop the movement, we did a workshop in Bristol after performing it a few times without having had a workshop. We wanted to find a bit more connection with oil, to feel where it comes from, to really get a chance to feel into the characters. It's a very tiring thing to perform for any length of time, and it's important for your group to make sure that everyone is fit and strong. The carrying of the costume, especially if you're walking through a wet oil slick, is actually quite heavy, and particularly for the taller people at the back, having their arms up for any length of time is really difficult and challenging. It's also really important to be moving as slow as possible and to really channel the feeling of oil in all of your movements. And I'd say that the visuals in this workshop, we're not slow enough. That would be a bit of feedback that we'd all probably have at the end of the workshop, is slow down. And I think it's really apparent when you look at the pictures that it is much better when we move slowly. So one of the movements that we developed and worked on was beginning as a puddle of oil on the ground, and making sure that our cloaks were spread out as much as possible, and then creating a kind of pool around us, which we then, like creatures that have been kept deep under the earth, emerged from, like oil coming out of an oil well, or oil rather seeping from the ground. So we started off lying quite low down, as you can see in the video, and developed a slow sort of rocking as we gradually, so slowly move up to a standing position. We move our arms, so the arms are some of them are kind of coming out from the earth, so we're not static. I don't know, you can see someone's hand there reaching out, almost like a branch from the ground coming up and then going back down. And there's an element of going up a little bit and then back down, so not feeling in any kind of rush at all. It's all very kind of oozing and slow. So also feeling into your sticks, rather than them being sticks that you're carrying, you're feeling them into them as they're extensions of your arms. So they're not bird wings or anything like that at all. They're arm extensions, and you're feeling the pull of the oil as it kind of comes up through those arm extensions. So your fabric becomes your pool of oil that you're pulling with you. Even though at times you might lean into your sticks, they're not something which you lean on to help you up. They are an extension of your hand, of your arm. You can see one of the characters at the front has a problem with their headdress. The fabric has kind of flipped over. If that happens, those kind of things happen, as they do when we're doing veils and stuff, we're in red, then just carry on with the performance and don't break character at all. Just maintain your character the whole time. So there's no fiddling with the costume. You're just letting it flow around you. Then in the workshop, once we were up to nearly standing, we started to kind of flow and move, try and move as one, and gradually move into a processional walking line. There's a very strong feeling of the oil being in our veins. So the walking that we're doing isn't a strong stride. There's a kind of fluidity even to the steps. And then moving on into a wave flowing motion. This is something which we use a lot when we're walking between locations, where the lead is moving very slowly and pulsing their arms so that the fabric flows like a river of oil. As they move, the person behind them moves, then the person behind them moves, and then the next one. So you get a wave going through the line of cloaks. That's one of the reasons why it's important to use a heavy, shiny fabric, because then you get this beautiful flowing motion with the cloth. So coming from the walking in procession, we form a V formation when we get to our destination, and all bend down to form puddles of oil, reaching our arms forward and making sure as we reach forward we open our arms wide to float the cloaks around us. Then we spend a bit of time looking down, and it's really helpful to have someone who's with you, your guide at this point, to give you a cue from the audience to help you get into position as well, to let you know if you're not quite in a V formation because you can't see anything, but also to give you some kind of audio cue so you go from all looking down to looking up at the same moment. It's far more effective when you do that all at once, and you move incredibly slowly. I would say that in this workshop people weren't moving quite slowly enough, so this is a workshop situation, but slowly. So for our performance here, we worked on a basis of having 5 different positions. The person at the front is rising much slower than the people at the back. The people at the back go from being low down to a semi-kneeling position, and then a half standing position, and then an almost totally standing position, and then they bring their arms out so that their middle arm is level and their outer arm is pointing right up, so that they get a beautiful flow of the cloak. So the whole picture goes through a sequence from being low down to standing, but your final standing position, it's helpful to think of it in terms of the hands on a clock. So you're aiming for the people at the back to be with their outer arm at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, the people on the middle row here are at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and the person in the front is at around 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. And then at the end, we go back down to our starting position. Good luck.